They stripped him of his name, his music, and the pop queen he'd crowned himself. Talent can't defeat capital, she'd said, shattering his world. They left him a ghost in a city of neon and lies, his legacy stolen by an imposter. Now, a new phantom haunts the industry. A mysterious producer named Stardust is releasing hit after hit, each one a perfectly aimed stone at their glass empire. They scramble to sign this new genius, never suspecting they're hunting the man they destroyed. But the key to his revenge is the one woman he can't figure out, the fiery, bankrupt studio owner he had a one-night stand with, who worships his old identity, and has no idea the infuriating new neighbor she just hired is her secret boss, her one-night stand, and the fallen god she's desperately trying to save. Even in the dead of night, the June asphalt of Shuangqing City seemed to exhale the heat of the day. This was 9th Street, a city within a city that never slept, soaked in neon and hormones. The heavy thud of bass leaked from the seams of every bar door, mixing with the scent of cheap perfume and alcohol, creating a sticky web that ensnared every wandering soul. Liu Su moved through the grotesque light show, a surgical mask hiding his face. He was a drop of clear water in a pan of hot oil, completely out of place amidst the revelry. He hated the noise, hated the live streamers who twisted their hips for a filtered camera but looked painfully ordinary in reality. In an age where even videos could be photoshopped, falsehood had become the very air they breathed. He ducked into a bar, found a corner stool, and ordered a cocktail. Tearing off his mask, he downed it in one go. The harsh liquid burned his throat, but did nothing to chase away the chill in his heart. Leaning against the bar, he pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one, and took a deep drag. The smoke coiled and dissipated before him, as hazy and broken as his career. Just then, a familiar scent drifted into his nostrils. A niche perfume, blending the heavy notes of ink with the earthy fragrance of vetiver, cool and unique. A voice, pleasant but laced with ice, sounded beside him. If you told her you were actually allergic to saliva, do you think she believes she missed out on a great love story? Leo turned his head. The figure beside him was completely wrapped in a simple long dress, a baseball cap pulled low, and a tight-fitting mask. He smirked, reaching out to pluck the cap from her head, revealing the face that had once mesmerized him under the spotlights. I've told you before, the best way to hide is to cover only what's necessary. Wrapping yourself up like a dumpling just makes you more conspicuous. Maybe I wanted the attention. The woman, the reigning pop queen, Iris Lee, said flatly. Oh, Leo chuckled, placing the cap back on her head. Pop superstar has a secret late-night meeting with her former producer. That's definitely enough to get you trending. Leo, can you be serious for once? Iris's brow furrowed, then quickly smoothed out. And you're not just some former producer. You're Sua He, the acknowledged genius of the industry. You reached top-tier producer status in 2.5 years, gained 50 million followers. Everyone said you were on track to become the youngest god of music. Everything you just said, Leo cut her off, his smile tinged with self-deprecating coldness. Does any of that still belong to me? Suahi, the name that had once brought him such glory, now felt like a thorn buried in his heart. He was a reincarnator, brought to this new world with a lifetime of memories from Earth. Armed with classic melodies from his past life, he had carved a path through the capital-controlled entertainment industry under the name Suahi, single-handedly elevating Iris Lee from an unknown rookie to a pop queen. But he had been too naive. He thought talent could conquer all, forgetting that the rules of this world were written by capital. When he refused to turn his music into a cheap commodity to fleece fans, Warner Entertainment, the corporate giant that had once treated him like royalty, mercilessly took everything back. The copyrights to the songs he had poured his soul into, even the stage name Sui, were all stripped away. Leo, Mr. Do asked me to tell you, as long as you're willing to come back and cooperate with the company's monetization plans, they'll consider giving you the name Sui back. Iris said, her voice soft, as if calming a wounded animal. It was mine to begin with. The smile vanished from Leo's face, his breathing grew ragged. I go back, and then what? Wait until I become a music god, just so they can toss me aside like trash again. He rarely got angry, but this time, rage churned like magma in his chest. It was like having his max-level game account, the one he'd grinded on for 2.5 years, forcibly reclaimed by the game company, only to be handed over to someone else. Iris bit her lip, struggling to speak. If you don't agree, they're going to let Felix Du become the new Suai. Felix Du, the nephew of the company's director, an empty suit who got by on connections. Leo felt like he'd just heard the joke of the century and couldn't help but laugh coldly. Is he even worthy? The company will buy high-quality songs, credit them to Suahi, and put Felix in the spotlight. Capital has endless ways to convince the public that he's the genius. Iris's words were a cold blade, slicing open the cruel reality. Leo actually started clapping, the sound strangely sharp in the noisy bar. Mr. Du truly is a brilliant businessman. You don't want the name Suahi to be tainted by someone like that, do you? Iris made one last attempt to persuade him. Leo shook his head, his eyes resolute. Even more, I don't want to personally help raise an imposter. Iris's gaze dimmed. She stared at the floor as if it were a black hole. After a long moment, she said softly, "Let's break up." The words were light, but they crashed down like a 1,000-pound weight, shattering the last bit of warmth in Leo's heart. He froze. Then his expression returned to a calm, almost cheerful state. "I made you a superstar. I can." "Don't be naive, Leo," Iris interrupted with a bitter smile. "Without Warner, what other company would dare to sign you? Without the name Suahi, your talent is worthless. Talent conquering capital? Your success was never about that. You just got lucky and were chosen by them." Leo's heart sank to the abyss. He looked at this woman who had become a complete stranger and asked softly, "So, what you loved was never me. It was just the name. You are love? That name is the dream." Iris lifted her head, her eyes filled with a resolve Leo couldn't comprehend. "I'm sorry. I choose the dream." "The dream." Leo repeated the word under his breath, then nodded, his tone terrifyingly calm. "Don't insult the word. I agree. Let's break up." There was no argument, no shouting. Iris gave him one last, deep look, then turned without a trace of reluctance and melted back into the flashing lights and roaring crowd of the bar. Watching her disappear, Leo felt his world, along with his heart, had been completely hollowed out. Career, love, 2 years of hard work, all gone in a single night. He drained the liquor in his glass, the spirit cutting a path like a knife from his throat to his stomach. He'd never been drunk before, had no idea what he was like. His last memory was of storming the stage, grabbing the keyboard, and in this den of vulgarity filled with lust and liquor, playing a piece of high art, Wedding in a Dream. It was a half-finished melody he had once released as Suai. Tonight, with a final, defiant farewell, he completed it. When the music ended, so did his consciousness. He woke to the morning of the next day. June's sunlight slipped through a crack in the curtains, casting a blinding slash of light on the white ceiling. His head was splitting, as if countless steel needles were churning in his temples. Leo groaned and sat up in bed, and in that instant he froze. He was completely naked. An unidentifiable soreness radiated from his lower back. The bed was a wreck, and a faint, unfamiliar fragrance lingered in the air. He looked down, his face turning pale. I'm no longer pure." Fragments of memory began to surface. He'd blacked out. After playing the piano at the bar, some woman had approached him, very well endowed. And then, nothing. Damn it. Did I get taken advantage of while I was passed out? Leo hugged his knees, wanting to cry but having no tears. The virginity he had cherished for 23 years was gone. Just like that? He instinctively checked his waist. Thankfully, both kidneys were still there. But his phone was gone. His wallet, however, with his ID and a few hundred in cash, was untouched. Just as he was seething with a mix of grief and indignation, ready to get dressed, a cold, emotionless, mechanical female voice echoed in his mind. Ding. Host's memories detected. The entertainment system is now activating. This system will guide the host to the pinnacle of this world's entertainment industry. Leo's motion of pulling on his pants froze. He stood there, stunned. A system? But hadn't he awakened his memories of Earth when he was 5? You awoke at 5? Wow, that's impressive. The system seemed surprised too. Obviously. How else do you think Suahi came to be? Leo roared internally, but a moment later, a wave of ecstasy washed over him. The system was late, but not entirely too late. If it had arrived earlier, he would have lost his max-level account to Warner. The loss would have been catastrophic. Host's anger detected. System activation successful. Host can gain prestige points by releasing works. Prestige can be used to customize works or upgrade professional skills. Ding. A newbie gift package has been granted. Open it. Open it now. Leo's heart hammered in his chest. Ding. Newbie gift package opened. You have received the song The Original Dream. Copyright has been registered for the host. The song has been placed in the system inventory. The Original Dream. A massive stream of information flooded his mind. The complete lyrics and score, a top-tier arrangement plan, even the emotional nuances for the performance, all were branded into his memory. It was a motivational anthem he knew by heart from his past life, a certified hit capable of sweeping the charts. With the entire cultural library of another planet as his arsenal, what was a mere Warner Entertainment? If talent can't defeat capital, then I'll become capital. Leo clenched his fists, the fire reignited in his eyes. He finished dressing and his gaze fell upon the nightstand, where he froze again. Neatly placed there were 2 thick stacks of $100 bills, a full $20,000. Underneath the cash was a note, the elegant handwriting filled with an undercurrent of anger, punctuated by 3 heavy exclamation points. Last night never happened. Leo let out a self-deprecating laugh and stuffed the money into his pocket. It felt a bit like being paid for services rendered, but money was money. As he was about to leave, his eyes swept over the white bedsheets. There, in the center of the rumpled mess, a striking crimson stain, like a plum blossom blooming in winter, seared into his vision. No way. Disbelief, shock, and finally, an indescribably complex emotion. So, it was the first time for both of them. In that case, he hadn't exactly lost out. A shame he couldn't remember a single thing about it. He shook his head with regret and turned to leave, but his foot stepped on something small and hard. He bent down and picked up a delicate earring from the carpet. It was shaped like a small, red cherry, gleaming faintly in the morning light. Didn't Cinderella leave behind a glass slipper? Leo muttered to himself, carefully placing the cherry earring in his pocket. Stepping out of the hotel, the morning sun washed over him, dispelling the haze of his hangover. He stood on the bustling street, abandoned by the world and possessing nothing, but he knew everything was about to change. In his pocket, he had a mysterious cherry earring, and in his mind, he had a battle hymn called The Original Dream, the opening salvo in his war of revenge that was about to engulf the entire entertainment world. In the capital, at the Warner Entertainment headquarters, David Dew was methodically brewing a pot of premium black tea behind his mahogany desk. The rich aroma filled the room, but it couldn't mask the cold, conspiratorial air. His nephew, Felix Dew, sat beside him, his eyes alight with an excitement he could barely contain. The office door opened softly, and Iris Lee walked in. Felix's face lit up, and he started to rise, but a sharp glance from his uncle pinned him back in his seat. "Iris, you're back." David Dew's voice was unreadable. He gestured for her to sit next to Felix and poured her a cup of tea. The amber liquid shimmered in the delicate porcelain, reflecting Iris's pale face. Silence fermented in the office. After a long moment, David Dew tapped his finger on the tea table, the sound like a judge's gavel. "What did he say?" Iris moistened her dry lips and finally shook her head with a bitter smile. "He said, he's not coming back." As expected. The curve of David Dew's lips grew colder. The spot on his left cheek where Leo had once punched him seemed to ache faintly. "Since he wants to play it this way, he can't blame us for being ruthless." "Mr. Dew." Iris tried one last time. "He's proud, and he's angry right now. Maybe I can try talking to him again in a little while." "No need." David Dew waved his hand dismissively. "I know his personality. If he was truly willing to commercialize the Suahi brand, he would have done it long ago. Do you know how many resources the company invested in him? And what did he do? He released all his songs for free, treating prestige like a religion. But capital is profit-driven. The board has no interest in supporting a saint who only knows how to build hype, but refuses to make money." His voice grew more agitated, flecks of spittle flying. "Now, the Suahi brand has reached its peak popularity. If he won't cash in on it, we will. Felix," he turned to his nephew, "at the music gala, you will be the new Suahi." "Yes, uncle." Felix straightened his back, thrilled. He had long despised Leo's arrogant demeanor. Why should a behind-the-scenes producer be more famous than a talented, overseas-educated artist like himself? Now, he would not only replace him but take over everything he had, including the public's favorite celebrity couple persona with the pop queen. Iris looked at the two men before her, one a calculating veteran, the other dripping with ambition. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end, she simply picked up her teacup and took a silent sip. It was exquisite tea, but it tasted of nothing but bitterness. Barely half a day later, a long-simmering online storm, launched like a precision-guided missile, detonated across every social media platform. Hashtag genius producer say to appear at music gala. Hashtag pop queen Iris Lee on restaurant date with mystery man suspected to be C. Hashtag Warner official, Sua to produce new album for Iris Lee by year end. The glaring headlines burned themselves onto Leo's retinas. He sat in front of his new computer, the room dark save for the screen's glow on his expressionless face. He lit a cigarette, the smoke coiling around him, stinging his eyes. The comment sections were a sea of celebration. Fans declared it was like Christmas, excitedly discussing his, finally, coming out into the public eye. They were already rallying support for the non-existent album, proclaiming, "We've been freeloading off Suahi for so long. We owe him an album." Occasionally, a dissenting voice would pop up, questioning if he had forgotten his promise to never charge for his music. But these faint whispers were instantly drowned in the torrent of rabid fan comments, dismissed as haters and trolls. Masterful manipulation of public opinion. Leo muttered to himself. He looked at his own questioning comment, now buried under thousands of replies attacking him. He felt a mix of emotions, anger at being fooled, but also a strange sense of warmth. These lovely fans, they were defending their idea of Suahi, a pure musical idealist. It was just a shame that this idealist had been cast out by capital, soon to be replaced by an imposter. He stubbed out his cigarette. His phone buzzed on the desk, a chubby avatar popping up on the screen. He managed a slight smile and answered the video call. "Fatty, what's up?" A booming voice came from the other end. "Let's go to the spa. Usual place." The Golden Basin Spa was steamy and warm. Leo lay back on a plush reclining chair as his regular masseuse, a skilled woman named Sonia, worked on the pressure points of his feet. The warm water enveloped his feet, the heat slowly spreading through his body, dispersing some of his pent-up frustration. The private room door was flung open and a large figure squeezed through. Haha, Leo, starting without me? The newcomer was Leo's childhood friend, Jason Lee. He flopped onto the adjacent recliner, which groaned under his weight. I called you the second my plane landed. That's friendship, right? Leo glanced at him. You sure heard the news fast. Of course. You're looking at Jason Lee, the genius who turned 50 grand into $500,000 in the U.S. financial markets in 1 year. Jason puffed out his chest proudly, then his tone shifted. But seriously, what's with all the noise online? Are you really making a public appearance? Aren't you afraid your old man will find out? Leo shook his head with a wry smile. That's not me. Jason's smile froze. Leo then recounted the entire saga with Warner Entertainment. As he spoke, Jason's jaw dropped wider and wider, the flesh on his face trembling with anger. When Leo finished, Jason slammed his hand on his thigh and roared, "Son of a bitch. Those damn capitalists are inhuman. Getting so worked up you're cursing your own future career path?" Leo said with a half-smile. "I'm different from them." Jason sat up straight, his goofy demeanor gone. "All right, tell me. What's your plan? You're not the type to take a loss lying down. I remember when I stole your eraser in grade school, you turned around and threw my entire pencil case out the window." "You know me best," Leo chuckled, a glint of steel in his eyes. "You're back for good this time?" "For good," Jason declared. "The domestic financial world is waiting for me to shake things up." "Jason," Leo's voice suddenly became intensely serious. "Yeah. I'm going to register an investment firm." Jason stared, then a brilliant, excited light burst from his eyes. "Playing for keeps, huh? If you're going for broke, you might as well go all the way. You in?" "Hell yeah. With a financial prodigy like me on your side, Warner Entertainment is nothing. We'll crush them with a snap of our fingers." Leo smiled. It was the first genuine smile he'd worn since hitting rock bottom. He held out his fist. Jason understood and bumped it with his own. One, a musical genius exiled by capital. The other, a financial wizard returned from Wall Street. A plan for revenge against a corporate giant was forged right there, in the steamy, down-to-earth confines of a spa. Back at his apartment, the rash on Leo's face from the events of the previous night hadn't fully subsided. He applied some ointment and lay in bed, his mind racing. With Jason as his strongest ally, the issues of funding and corporate structure were solved. Now, he needed ammunition for the first shot, prestige points. He opened the most popular music marketplace in the industry, TuneTrade. He had another, little-known account there. The level was low, but it was better than starting fresh. He tried a few passwords, and finally, entered Iris Lee's birthday. It worked. Looking at the familiar ID, Stardust, Leo felt a pang of nostalgia, then immediately changed the password, severing that last tie to the past. He browsed the forums aimlessly, watching grassroots musicians fight tooth and nail over $500 bounties. It was a world he had almost forgotten. Just then, a golden, scrolling banner appeared at the top of the site. Hashtag major commission announcement in 5 minutes. Hashtag. Leo's attention sharpened. A banner announcement meant a commission of at least $50,000. 5 minutes later, a post was pinned to the top, its title bold and clear. Requesting an uplifting, motivational song requirements. Female vocalist, moderate difficulty, lyrics about dreams and perseverance. Bounty, $50,000. Copyright type, all rights. Leo's breath caught in his throat. It was as if this request had been tailor-made for the original dream sitting in his system. It was a perfect opportunity, delivered on a silver platter. However, when he saw the words, all rights, his brow furrowed. After his betrayal by Warner, he knew the importance of copyright better than anyone. To give up ownership of his work again was like cutting off his own arm. What should he do? Give up this once-in-a-lifetime chance, or try to negotiate with the buyer? As he was caught in this dilemma, his new phone suddenly rang, the sound jarring in the quiet room. He picked it up and saw the caller ID, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He lit a cigarette, answered the call, his tone holding a familiar mix of respect and closeness. "Sis, what made you call me?" The new phone vibrated on the nightstand, its screen cutting a slice of light through the dim room. Leo answered, and a familiar, teasing, sultry voice immediately shot through the receiver. "Little brother, confess and you'll be treated with leniency. Resist, and you'll face the consequences." "Who was that woman who answered your phone this morning?" Leo's heart skipped a beat. Had news of his wild night already reached his older sister, Maya Sue? He cleared his throat, a little too casually. "What woman?" "I lost my phone, just got a new SIM card." "Oh, lost it?" Maya's voice dripped with disbelief. The voice I heard certainly didn't sound like Iris Lee. "What's this? Our famous top-tier producer is cheating on the pop queen." "Don't be ridiculous," Leo retorted, annoyed. "Am I that kind of person? I really did lose my phone." Maya Sue was the closest person Leo had in this world. 3 years his senior and a devoted anime fan at heart. She had worked her way up to a management position at an animation company. Like Leo, she had a strained relationship with their father, a man stubbornly insistent that his children become literary scholars. Both siblings were headstrong. Once they chose a path, they never looked back. Because of this, they had become each other's staunchest supporters. "Is that so?" Maya's tone was filled with undisguised disappointment, as if she'd just missed out on some epic gossip. Fine then, let's talk business. The internet is blowing up, saying you're finally going to make a public appearance. You've got some nerve. Not afraid of Dad showing up at the music gala with a kitchen knife, ready to lecture you about classic literature? Leo gave a weary smile. Don't worry, he wouldn't see me even if he went. He paused, then gave her the condensed version of Warner's treachery and his breakup with Iris. The line went silent for a dozen seconds. Just as Leo thought the call had dropped, Maya's seductive tone vanished, replaced by a low growl simmering with rage. Those bastards at Warner. Where's my sword? Little brother, meet me at their headquarters. I'm getting you justice today. A surge of warmth washed over Leo, dispelling the gloom that had shrouded him for days. Sis, let it go? I'll just chalk it up to bad luck. The moment you say that, I know you're up to something. Maya's tone suddenly switched back to its usual playful banter. Leo paused, confused, as she chuckled. Ever since we were kids, whenever you said, let it go, it meant the other person was about to suffer. I get it. Whatever you do, I've got your back. Before hanging up, Maya couldn't resist one last piece of gossip. So, the thief who stole your phone was just a thief? Losing your phone is no big deal, but losing your heart, that's another story, my foolish little brother. For the last time, she's not my girlfriend. Leo practically yelled as he ended the call, then let out a long, slow breath. His sister's concern was a balm, but her gossip was a sweet kind of torture. He turned back to his computer and logged into TuneTrade. The $50,000 commission post already had over 80 submissions. He saw 2 level 20 accounts, Bumblebee and Melon, among the contenders. The forums were already buzzing with discussions about the impending showdown between the two giants. In the face of capital, talent might seem fragile. But in the face of a truly great work, what did levels and seniority matter? Leo's gaze sharpened. He uploaded the demo for The Original Dream, and in the submission notes, he typed out the controversial line, selling only the performance rights for this song. Interested parties, please add me on the messaging app to discuss. With that, he shut down the computer. The first piece in his game of revenge had been placed on the board. 3 days later, at Star Dream Studio, the air was thick with the smell of anxiety and exhaustion. Claire Lynn's eyes were bloodshot as she stared at the computer screen. The $50,000 she'd gotten from pawning her beloved car was the studio's last lifeline. If this gamble failed, not only would her car be gone, but this small studio, which held all her dreams and the hopes of her employees, would sink completely. If only we had a producer who could write songs, she murmured, her voice laced with fatigue. Her assistant, Jia, and the 3 remaining singers, the punkish Chloe Chun, the hopeful Hannah Zhang, and the stoic, older Sean Shui, all nodded in solemn agreement. A music studio without a creative core was like a ship without an engine, left to drift at the mercy of the waves. All right, let's listen. Once we get through this pile of electronic garbage, we can listen to the 2 big shots, Claire said, rubbing her temples and forcing herself to rally. They had already listened to over 50 of the 80-plus submissions, each one an auditory torture that frayed their already fragile nerves. Finally, after discarding countless amateurish tracks, they opened the submissions from the 2 level 20 titans. The first, from Bumblebee, had a powerful melody and excellent arrangement. But the lyrics were full of a hard, masculine perspective that made Hannah, the intended singer, visibly uncomfortable. It was clearly a repurposed track, hastily transposed for a female voice. The second, from Melon, had delicate, fitting lyrics, but the melody was flat and unmemorable, like a glass of lukewarm water. Hope had risen, only to be extinguished. A dead silence fell over the office. One song had good lyrics, the other had a good melody, but they couldn't be combined. Was their $50,000 gamble going to end in a lukewarm compromise? Claire's heart sank, her chest tightening with the sound of a dream about to shatter. Let Hannah choose. She's the one who has to sing it, she said, her voice hoarse as she relinquished control. I. Hannah stared at the screen, her palms sweating, unable to make a decision. Wait a second, said Jia, who had been manning the mouse. There's one last one. Should we give it a listen? All eyes turned to the screen. The ID was Stardust, and its level was a glaring 5. And in the submission notes, a single line clearly stated the artist's demands. Jia's expression was odd as she read it aloud. Selling only the performance rights. All other rights are not for sale. The office was quiet for a beat, then erupted in disbelief. A level 5 account? Who does he think he is? Is this guy insane? A rookie trying to hold on to his copyrights. Claire lurched forward, leaning close to the screen. When she saw the song's title, The Original Dream, and that arrogant note, a surge of anger shot through her, and she actually laughed out loud. $50,000, and he won't even sell the full copyright. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, a cold sneer on her lips. Who does he think he is? Some kind of top-tier producer. The air in Star Dream Studio had solidified, a mixture of cheap caffeine and despair. Claire Lynn leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. using her last reserves of energy to maintain a semblance of professional composure. Her eyes scanned the level 5 account on the screen, ID Stardust, and a cold, mocking smile touched her lips. A level 5 nobody, daring to negotiate terms with me about copyrights. She huffed, her voice low but laced with an ironclad finality. I, Claire Lynn, would rather throw this money into a river and buy some rookie's garbage than purchase a song from someone so arrogant. As the words left her mouth, her assistant Jia, acting as if she hadn't heard a thing, clicked the play button with a might-as-well attitude. She figured the song title, The Original Dream, sounded nice, at least. The next second, a clear, synthesized female voice with a strangely compelling quality flowed from the speakers. It was different from any demo they had heard before. Though electronic, the pronunciation and vocal turns carried a simulated, perfectly nuanced emotion. If pride had not been slapped down by the cold, hard sea of reality, how would we ever learn how hard we must work to reach a place so far away? The moment the music began, everyone in the room seemed to freeze. Chloe, who had been idly picking at her nails, shot her eyes wide open. Sean, who had been staring at the floor, slowly lifted his head, his ears twitching. And Hannah, who had been agonizing over which song to choose, now had a brilliant light shining in her eyes. Claire's crossed arms trembled involuntarily. Her tense body began to relax, inch by inch, under the melody's soothing touch. When the song reached the chorus, the soaring, powerful melody felt like an invisible hand seizing the hearts of everyone present. The Original Dream, held tight in my hand. The place I want to go most. How can I turn back halfway there? Jia instinctively turned her head, only to find her boss's face was now right next to hers, their noses almost touching. Before she could yelp, Claire had snatched the mouse and cranked the system volume to maximum. The music swelled, echoing through the small office, each note a hammer striking the souls of these struggling dreamers. When the song ended, the melody lingered in the air. A long silence fell over the room, so quiet they could hear each other's heartbeats. Claire stiffly pulled her chin back and cleared her throat, trying to salvage her composure. Humph. It was mediocre at best. But before she could finish, Hannah slid out of her chair with a thud and hugged her legs. Boss, what are you doing? Claire yelped, startled. Boss, I want this song. This is the one. Hannah looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes filled with a desperate, unwavering resolve. Claire looked at her employee's tear-stained face, then remembered the vow she had just made. Her own face burned hot with embarrassment. She sighed in resignation, then reached down and tipped Hannah's chin up, creating a flimsy excuse for herself. Well, since you're insisting so strongly, I suppose a good boss who cares for her employees can't really refuse. She took out her phone and added the contact for Stardust. He accepted quickly, in a bid for sincerity, and perhaps to see if she could use her charm to recruit a producer for the studio. Claire immediately sent a video call request. It was instantly rejected. A line of text popped up on her screen that made her freeze. I'm on the toilet. State your business. Veins throbbed on Claire's forehead. Swallowing her disgust, she began to type. She introduced herself, then tried to use her own minor fame as a singer and some cute voice messages to soften him up, hoping he'd budge on the copyrights. The reply was merciless. Your voice isn't right for this song. It wouldn't be a hit even if you sang it. I'll find someone else. That one sentence shut down all her tactics. She could only scramble to explain that her studio's artist, Hannah Zhang, would be the one singing. A few minutes later, he gave his final offer. I can knock off 10,000, so 40,000. But the copyrights are non-negotiable. Not a single word. Claire fell into deep thought. The quality of this song was worth betting everything on. The $50,000 prize for winning the competition, the free promotion from the TV station, and even the possibility of launching Hannah into stardom. The copyrights were important, but survival was more important. Fine, I agree. She sent the 3 words through gritted teeth. In his apartment in Shuangqing, Leo emerged from the bathroom, a playful smile on his face. He tossed his phone onto the sofa and muttered to himself, how is a company with a boss like that still in business? He was used to the cunning and deceit of the corporate world. This was the first time he had encountered a client as straightforward and, frankly, as naive as Claire Lynn. But it was precisely her naivete that had made his plan go so smoothly. He had looked it up. The competition Hannah Zhang was about to enter, The Voice of Qing, was the perfect stage for the debut of The Original Dream. Just then, the doorbell rang. Jason Lee burst in, sporting 2 massive dark circles under his eyes, and slapped a thick business proposal onto the table. Starfall Investments. This is where we begin. Amidst a haze of cigarette smoke, the 2 of them finalized every detail of their grand plan for revenge. Leo would invest his entire net worth of $20 million, while Jason would contribute his expertise for a 30% stake. They wouldn't be the heroes in the spotlight, but the puppet masters in the shadows, investing in and supporting small, promising companies, using the cultural treasures of an entire planet to weave a giant net that would silently envelop the behemoths that had once crushed him. Talent can't beat capital, Leo said, taking a deep drag from his cigarette, his eyes glinting. So I'll become the biggest capital in the entertainment industry myself. Meanwhile, the forums on ToonTrade had already exploded. There were only 10 minutes left before the deadline for the $50,000 commission. The fans of Bumblebee and Melon were at each other's throats, and even the two high-level producers themselves had joined the fray, their words dripping with animosity. Leo's alias, Stardust, had become the butt of every joke. In a betting pool someone had started, the odds of him winning were an astronomical 2,000 to 1. Just as everyone assumed the winner would be one of the two titans, a golden, scrolling banner refreshed at the top of the website's homepage. It landed like a thunderclap, silencing all the noise. Hashtag Star Dream Studios' $50,000 commission has been awarded to Stardust for the song The Original Dream. Hashtag. For a moment, it felt as if time on the entire forum had stopped. Melon was stunned. Bumblebee was stunned. The five geniuses who had actually bet on Stardust were stunned. Everyone who had been watching the drama, mocking the underdog, and arguing amongst themselves, was utterly and completely stunned. That golden announcement was a depth charge dropped into a calm lake, unleashing a tidal wave in the digital world of ToonTrade. The forums were instantly flooded with a torrent of traffic, descending into an unprecedented state of chaos and disbelief. Rigged. This has to be rigged. Did the client get dropped on their head? They passed on two level 20 producers to spend 50 grand on a level 5 rookie. I can't accept this. How could a newbie who won't even sell his copyrights win? Doubt, anger, and jealousy spread like a virus through every thread. The users who had bet on the two titans wailed in the comment sections, while the five lucky souls who had been mocked for 3 days as idiots were now rubbing it in everyone's faces with smug satisfaction. The entire forum had become a bizarre tragicomedy written in data and code. In the Capitol, at Artisan Entertainment, senior producer Dexter Sierra ripped off his headphones and slammed them on his desk. He was Melon, the level 20 titan from ToonTrade. Right now, his handsome face was contorted with fury, his breathing ragged. He couldn't accept that he, a well-known senior producer in the industry, had lost to a nameless level 5 account. To him, it was a professional humiliation that he couldn't let stand. Larry, he turned to a colleague, his voice low. Do me a favor. Go ask around in the marketing department about a small company called Star Dream Studio. See if any of their artists are releasing a new song soon. Dex, I don't know. Top shelf drinks at the Oasis tonight. My treat. Consider it done. I'm on it. At the center of the storm, Leo's apartment remained an oasis of calm. He lounged on the sofa, scrolling through his phone like an indifferent spectator enjoying the chaos he had created. His private messages had exploded with curses, accusations, pleas, and threats. A whole spectrum of human nature flickered past his screen, yet none of it stirred a single ripple within him. He just found it amusing. In this world, there would always be people who couldn't stand to see others succeed. He closed the forum and opened a long-dormant group in his messaging app, Warner Colleagues. These had once been his closest comrades over the past 2 years, every one of whom had benefited from his guidance and help. He randomly clicked on a contact named Charles Chun, a man he had practically mentored. The last message in their chat history was a humble question from Charles and a patient answer from himself. Leo sent a simple smiling emoji. A second later, a cold, red exclamation mark appeared. He had been blocked. A sardonic smile played on Leo's lips. He didn't bother testing anyone else. He simply long-pressed the group name and tapped delete. Workplace friendships, it seemed, were as fragile as a cicada's wing. They're one moment, gone the next. After clearing that out, his gaze fell on the name pinned at the top of his chat list, Iris Lee. He didn't delete it immediately. Instead, he opened the chat and began scrolling through their entire history. It was a love story documented in text messages, from initial admiration and joy, to flirtation and testing the waters, to the final confession and passionate romance. You're a god. They're so silly. They actually think we're a real couple. They don't know it's just for show. Leo, I don't want to just be your pretend girlfriend. I like you. I want to be your real girlfriend. Each message was like a dull knife, carving into his already scarred heart. He read silently until the cigarette between his fingers burned down and singed his skin. Snapping back to reality, he stubbed it out in the ashtray, took a deep breath, and the mocking curve of his lips deepened. Deep feelings are never kept. Only the heartless find happiness, he murmured, as if passing judgment on his former self. Then, he opened the chat settings, hit the red delete button, and for good measure, blocked her contact. There was no hesitation, just the clean, decisive action of a surgeon removing a necrotic limb. To hell with love. From now on, he would only trust himself. Meanwhile, in a dressing room backstage at the Shuangqing TV station, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The voice of Qing, the competition that would decide the fate of Star Dream Studio, was about to begin. As Hannah Zhang, Star Dream's contestant, walked into the waiting area, she saw a figure that made her teeth clench, Evan Yang. Just a few days ago, he had been Star Dream Studio's most skilled vocalist. the artist Claire Lynn had poured countless resources into. Now, he was sporting the logo of Seastone Entertainment, their most direct competitor. Hannah, I'm surprised they sent you, Evan said with a smile, his tone dripping with condescending superiority. Yeah, well, getting new opportunities right after jumping ship? Seastone Entertainment must really value a traitor like you. Hannah shot back without hesitation. A wise bird chooses the best tree to nest in. Evan chuckled, utterly shameless. Besides, if I hadn't left, this chance to be on stage wouldn't have gone to you, would it? You. Hannah's face flushed with anger. You ungrateful jerk. If it weren't for Claire investing her own money and resources in you, where would you be today? Evan's smile faded, replaced by a look of disdain. She was my boss. I have talent. It's her job to promote me. Was she supposed to promote someone like you instead? Someone with no future? That last line was a poison dart that struck deep into Hannah's heart. She trembled with rage but couldn't utter a single word in response. He was right. In the face of capital and reality, things like talent and loyalty sometimes seemed like a joke. Outside, in the broadcast hall, the few remaining members of Star Dream Studio were gathered around a television, anxiously awaiting the start of the show. Claire was munching on a slice of watermelon, trying to create a relaxed atmosphere. When the judges on screen began a group performance of a song she knew by heart, a classic hit, she instantly brightened. Wow, it's a song by my idol, Suahi. I love it, she began to hum along, her face beaming with pride and admiration. I heard he's going to be at the music gala this year. I have to go. It'll be the first time he's ever shown his face in public. She was filled with excitement at the thought of finally seeing her idol, completely unaware that the man she worshipped as Saint was, at that very moment, operating as Stardust, holding the fate of her and her entire studio in his hands. And the song that was about to take the stage, the original Dream, was the first bullet he was firing back at a cruel and unforgiving world. On the live set of The Voice of Qing, the air buzzed with a cheap sort of excitement. The traitor, Evan Yang, stood center stage. Under the spotlights, dressed in an outfit handpicked by Seastone Entertainment, he wore a professional and confident smile. He performed a song called Strive, a standard, uplifting pop anthem. The music began, and Evan's performance was flawless. His breath control was steady, his pitch perfect. Every riff and high note was handled with the precision of a German machine. During the chorus, he even threw in a flashy vocal run, earning polite but enthusiastic applause from the audience. On the sofa at Star Dream Studio, Sean Shue's expression grew serious. The production quality on this song is high. With his vocal skills, if the promotion is good, it could easily break the top 30 on the new music charts. Seastone Entertainment spent a lot of money on this. Of course they want to win. Claire Lynn's voice was cold. Use the TV station's resources to push the song onto the charts. Kill two birds with one stone. The vague sense of dread in her heart was becoming sharper. After his performance, Evan took a graceful bow and walked off stage. In the dim corridor leading backstage, he passed Hannah Zhang, who was on her way up. Good luck, Hannah, he said with a smile, his tone dripping with a superiority as cloying as his expensive cologne. Hannah stopped and looked up at him, her gaze clear and cold. Did you know? Before you left, Claire was planning to sell her car to buy you a good song. Evan's smile froze for a second before twisting into a sneer. Little girl, let me give you some advice. No boss in this world is nice to you for no reason. She invests in you because she wants you to make more money for her. All capitalists are the same. Since it's just a job, why wouldn't I choose a bigger platform? Claire is not a capitalist. Hannah's fists clenched. You're too naive. Evan shook his head with a look of pity. Just watch. I'm winning this thing. Without another word, he walked away, his back radiating the arrogance of a victor. Hannah stood frozen for a moment, taking a deep breath, pushing all her anger and sorrow down into her chest. She turned, gripped her microphone, and walked step by step into the light. When the host announced the name Star Dream Studio, a small stir went through the crowd. To the local audience, this was just some unknown filler act. Many had already looked down at their phones. But the moment the intro began, everything changed. It was a clean, pure piano melody, like the first ray of dawn gently parting the clouds. Hannah stood on stage, looking small and nervous under the chaotic, flashing lights. But when she opened her mouth to sing, it was as if all the noise in the studio was instantly sucked away. If pride had not been slapped down by the cold, hard sea of reality, how would we ever learn how hard we must work to reach a place so far away? Her voice was like a mountain spring, lacking Evan's flashy technique, but possessing a sincerity that went straight to the heart. At the first line, the audience members who had been looking at their phones all looked up in unison. Her voice had a kind of magic, piercing through their ears and gently knocking on the softest part of their souls. If a dream had not fallen from a cliff, saved at the last moment, how would we ever know that the persistent possess hidden wings? Hannah slowly forgot her nerves, forgot the shabby stage and the judging eyes of the crowd. She was completely immersed in the world of the song. It felt like it had been written for her, telling not just a story, but her story, the story of everyone at the studio, their struggles and their perseverance. When the drums kicked in, the emotion built layer by layer, and the air in the studio seemed to ignite. The audience sat up straighter. Some bit their lips, others closed their eyes. The melody was a key, unlocking dusty rooms in their memories. In those rooms were childhood dreams of exploring the stars, lonely walks down empty streets after working late, the reluctant gazes of parents as they left home, and all those original dreams, worn down by life and buried deep within. In front of the TV, Claire Lynn's eyes were already red. Beside her, the veteran Sean Shui, a man who had been through the ups and downs of the music industry for years, felt two hot tears slide down his cheeks. He watched the radiant girl on the screen and saw himself years ago, fresh off winning a talent show, believing he could change the world with his voice. I wish I could stand there again, he whispered, a bitter sound only he could hear. In the Capitol, at Artisan Entertainment, Dexter Sia and his colleague Larry sat stunned in front of their computer. The song coming through their headphones was a tidal wave, smashing all their previous disdain to pieces. Dexter's jaw hung slightly open, his prized professional judgment suddenly seeming ridiculous. He had lost, and he was thoroughly convinced. The quality of this song far exceeded his imagination, even exceeded his own work. On stage, Hannah's emotions and voice soared to their peak. The original dream, held tight in my hand. The place I want to go most. How can I turn back halfway there? She raised her free hand, swinging it forcefully with the rhythm. Her stage presence was raw, but full of infectious energy. The audience below began to raise their hands spontaneously, waving them along with her, a forest of arms swaying in the light. They were no longer paid extras. They were listeners truly moved by the music. The original dream will absolutely be reached. Only by realizing a true desire can one say they've been to paradise. As the final note faded, Hannah was already in tears. The applause that erupted from the audience was thunderous and unending. People stood up, shouting her name. She looked out at the scene before her as tears streamed down her face. A stage, an audience, people listening to me sing. It felt so good. She took a deep bow, her tears splashing onto the stage. The excited host walked out, bringing all three contestants to the center for the final judges' scoring. Calvin Chow received a respectable 83.75. When it was Evan Yang's turn, the tone shifted dramatically. The judges lavished him with praise, as if he had just performed a timeless masterpiece. Evan's voice has such a magnetic quality. It reminded me of my own struggles. I give him a 93. Full of emotion, technically flawless, a very mature singer. I give him a 95. Overflowing with positive energy, impeccable. 96. In the end, Evan Yang's score was a staggering 94.75. He shot a triumphant look at the stunned Hannah beside him, a victorious smirk playing on his lips. Hannah's heart sank. She could feel an invisible pressure, a malice coming from the rules of the game itself. The host's booming voice filled the hall. An incredible score. And now, will our four judges please give their scores for our final contestant of the night, Hannah Zhang? The stage lights were blinding, the air already thick with the scent of a victory champagne that seemed reserved for Evan Yang. He stood there, a faint, mocking smile on his lips, as if watching a play whose ending had already been written. Hannah's heart plunged. She looked towards the judges' panel, only to be met with four faces that were either evasive or coldly indifferent. The first judge cleared his throat, deliberately avoiding her eyes. A very good performance. Your emotion and technique were spot on. However, this competition is about more than just vocal skill. It's also about the song itself. And this song, forgive me for being blunt, is not very mature. It actually limited your performance. I give it an 83. The words had barely left his mouth when the second judge nodded in agreement. Exactly. To sing at this level as an internet personality is already quite impressive. Unfortunately, your song choice was your fatal flaw. 80 points. The third and fourth judges echoed the sentiment, their critiques eerily similar, as if rehearsed. Every word was a backhanded compliment to Hannah's singing, and a gentle knife twisting into the heart of the original dream. Your vocals were great. The song held you back. This conclusion echoed through the studio like a curse. The live audience was dumbfounded. The comments in the live stream momentarily paused. Was the soul-stirring emotion, the tearful connection they had all felt just a moment ago, all an illusion? Could a song that moved people to tears truly be a piece of inferior work in the ears of the professionals? The host's loud voice shattered the bizarre silence. Hannah Zhang's final score is 79.75, the lowest score of the night. A roar filled Hannah's ears, and the world faded to a dull gray, leaving only a piercing buzz. She stumbled, staring in disbelief at the judges on their high perch, then at the smug face of Evan Yang beside her. He shot her a mocking smile and shrugged, as if to say, see, this is reality. Let's give a huge round of applause to our champion of the voice of Qing, Evan Yang. As confetti rained down, Evan held his trophy high, basking in a glory tailor-made for him. But online, The delayed explosion of outrage finally erupted. It's rigged. A blatant fix. Were the tears I cried fake? Are the judges deaf? People always say not to second-guess the experts, but I can't accept this. That song was 100 times better than Strive. Back at Star Dream Studio, the silence was absolute. The watermelon rind in Sean's hand fell to the floor. Chloe shot up from the sofa, her face flushed with anger. Claire said nothing. She just stared at the television screen, at Evan's triumphant face. The half-eaten slice of watermelon in her hand was slowly crushed, its red juice dripping down her white-knuckled fingers and onto the sofa like a pool of silent blood. Finish the watermelon. Don't let it go to waste, she finally said, her voice terrifyingly calm. She stood up and walked into her office, slamming the door behind her. The others looked at each other, seeing only bitter helplessness in their eyes. They understood now. From the moment the bigger studios declined to participate and their tiny, unknown studio was invited, they had been nothing but pawns. They were pathetic supporting actors, cast only to make the predetermined star shine brighter. Where is the fairness in this world? Sean sighed, picking up the watermelon rind from the floor. In the Capitol, at Artisan Entertainment, Dexter C.S. slammed his fist on his desk. The loud bang startled his nearby colleagues. This is outrageous, he seethed, his chest heaving. He wasn't angry for the girl, Hannah. He was angry because his purest artistic sensibilities had been trampled and humiliated. A piece of garbage won against the original dream. He pointed at the screen, yelling at his colleague Larry. Doesn't that mean that I, Dexter C.S., am even worse than that piece of garbage? The logic was strange, but it had struck a nerve. He, a senior producer, a man who had once beaten Swahi in his early days, could not tolerate his taste being so thoroughly defiled. Larry, get on social media. I'm exposing this trashy show, he said through gritted teeth. Not for the singer. I'm doing this so everyone knows that this show is not worthy of this song. In Schwanching, at Leo's apartment, Jason Lee burst in, shouting gleefully, Leo, your new song bombed. Leo lay on the sofa, casually blowing a smoke ring. There was no anger on his face, only a hint of amusement. You seem happy about it. Of course I am. Jason flopped onto the couch, which groaned in protest. I was just thinking, what kind of faces will those 4 idiot judges make when they find out the song they trashed was written by Sue? Leo chuckled. Why would I be angry? This isn't a bad thing. Jason paused. Then his eyes lit up with excitement. You're right. This kind of blatant rigging might be business as usual for industry insiders. But for the public, it's the best kind of fuel. We can hire a few content farms to stir up controversy about the TV station. We won't even need the singer to play the victim. The debate over the injustice alone will be enough to make the original dream a viral hit. Great minds think alike, Leo nodded in approval. But protect the singer. Keep her out of the storm. Our target is the TV station and the station alone. No problem. Jason slapped his chest, then pulled up a file on his phone. By the way, I found that investment target you wanted. Seastone Entertainment, Evan Yang's company, is backed by your old friends at Warner. Talk about a small world. Leo's eyes narrowed for a moment, then returned to calm. So they aren't our target. Of course not. A calculating smile spread across Jason's face. I found a much better target. A small workshop on the verge of bankruptcy, just waiting for the final straw to break it. Leo raised an eyebrow. It's the studio that bought your song. Star Dream Studio. Leo was taken aback, then burst out laughing. The big spender boss who didn't even haggle and started the negotiation with cute voice messages? This was practically fate. He still owed her a $10,000 refund. Losing this competition is the final straw that will crush her. Jason's tone was sharp with business acumen. If we approach them now to invest, it will be incredibly easy. Once we take it over, we'll have the perfect shell, a frontline base from which we can launch our assault. Leo stubbed out his cigarette and stood up, his eyes gleaming with the foresight of a chess master about to make a move. All right, he said, looking out at the city lights, his voice calm and powerful. You handle the negotiations. Once you succeed, it'll be time for me to make my move. Inside a private room at a bustling hot pot restaurant in Schwanching, the mood was colder than a freezer. The spicy broth bubbled and rolled, cooked beef balls and duck blood bobbing on the surface, yet not a single pair of chopsticks reached for them. What was supposed to be a victory dinner had become a somber farewell meal. Hannah Zhang's eyes were swollen, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Claire, I'm sorry. I let you down. It's not your fault. Claire Lynn shook her head, her voice hoarse. I was the one who was too naive. A rigged competition like that. Even if I had gone on stage myself, I couldn't have won. She had once been full of ambition, hoping to carve out a small, clean space in an industry controlled by capital and backroom deals. But reality had just delivered a resounding slap in the face with a blatant, public fix. The tens of thousands she'd spent on the song, the gamble she'd made by pawning her car, all of it had ended in a crushing defeat. It's okay. We'll do better next time. Chloe, the eternal optimist, forced a smile, trying to lift the mood. But Claire just shook her head bitterly, stating a fact that felt undeniable. There is no next time. My savings are all gone. Her words fell like a cold stone into the hearts of everyone present, creating ripples of dead silence. Sean Shui, the studio's veteran, struggled for a moment before speaking. I still have some savings. Hannah's song is so good. If we spend some money on promotion, we can definitely. It's useless. Claire cut him off, the last glimmer of light in her eyes fading. You forgot. We don't own the copyright to the song. Yes, the copyright. The very thing they had sacrificed in their all-or-nothing gamble had now become the final straw. Without the copyright, they wouldn't see a dime, no matter how popular the song became. Every plan, every fantasy, evaporated in that instant. Claire took a deep breath and slowly raised her glass. The hearts of everyone in the room sank with her movement. Consider this meal my treat. A farewell dinner, she said, her eyes red as she looked at the companions who had stuck with her. Chloe, you're still young. Don't waste your future here. Hannah, the performance rights to the original Dream are my gift to you. Take them and go to a bigger company. You can become a real singer. Sean, with your talent, you'll find work anywhere. She spoke like someone giving their last will, arranging a future for everyone but herself. Then she raised her glass. Come on, let's have a drink. I wish you all a bright future and that all your dreams come true. No one spoke. There was only the clinking of glasses and the sound of stifled sobs. A shot of strong liquor burned its way down their throats, extinguishing the last embers of hope. The next afternoon, Chloe and Hannah, still hungover, returned to the studio to a heartbreaking sight. Claire was struggling with a cardboard box full of files, a bright smile on her face that couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. The lease is up in 5 days, so you should pack up your things, she said casually, as if arranging a simple move. As for your salaries, as soon as that Stardust guy refunds me the money, I'll transfer it to you immediately. Claire, Hannah could no longer hold back. She threw her arms around her, her tears soaking Claire's shirt. There. All good things must come to an end, Claire said, patting her back with a smile. My ride is here, I have to go. She and Hannah carried the heavy box toward the front door, each step feeling like they were walking on the rubble of their shattered dreams. But just as they were about to step outside, a large shadow fell over them. A tall, heavy-set figure blocked all the light from the doorway. He was squeezed into a black suit, a calm, unhurried smile on his face. Excuse me, are you Miss Lin, the CEO of Stardream Studio? Claire frowned. She didn't know this man. If you have something to say it quickly. I'm in a hurry. My name is Jason Lee, from Starfall Investments. The man adjusted his tie, his smile growing more confident. I'd like to talk to you about an investment. In your dream. Dream. Claire heard the word and let out a laugh, as if it were the funniest joke in the world. A mocking smile touched her lips. Capitalists talking about dreams? Sorry, I'm not accepting any investments. Don't be so quick to refuse. Jason took a step to the side, blocking their path. We are an investment firm that respects dreams. Please, give me a few minutes. I promise, you won't regret it. Ultimately, Claire found herself back in the office she was about to abandon. Jason sat across from her and got straight to the point. An initial investment of $10 million. Starfall Investments will only provide the capital. We will not interfere in any of your company's day-to-day operations. You, Ms. Lin, will remain the sole boss here. Claire's eyes widened. Just money, no strings attached? Could such a thing even exist? Sensing her doubt, Jason pushed a proposal across the desk. Of course, since we're taking the risk, we'll naturally take the lion's share of the profits. Our initial proposal is an 80-20 split in our favor. What do you think? He was prepared to haggle. 70-30 was his bottom line. However, Claire's next words left him, a genius who had navigated the cutthroat world of finance, completely stunned. If it's really as you say, Claire looked up, a spark of hope reigniting in her eyes. I can take just 10%. Jason's professional smile froze on his face. A reverse negotiation? Was that even a thing? He looked at this woman, whose eyes were too pure for a businesswoman, and for a moment, he was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Leo Su sat at his computer, the true puppet master of the storm. His fingers flew across the keyboard, crafting a passionate and inflammatory post, which he published under Jason's account. A call to arms. The song that beat two titans was sabotaged in a small-time competition. He positioned himself as an outraged industry peer, decrying the dirty tactics of capital and calling on all musicians to unite and protect their livelihoods and their integrity. The post instantly detonated the forums. Countless passionate young musicians were fired up, reposting and calling for justice. Next, he switched back to his own Stardust account and left a comment full of sorrow and disappointment, perfectly portraying the image of a talented creator beaten down by a harsh reality. Empathy and sympathy peaked in an instant. Even the level 20 Titan Melon personally commented, vowing to risk his reputation to get him justice. Leo watched the supportive comments roll in, a strategic smile on his face. He hadn't spent a single dollar, yet he had mobilized an entire online community to build hype for him, for free. Just then, Jason called. It's done. A 90-10 split. That woman is an angel. Jason's voice was a mix of excitement and disbelief. I'm not surprised, Leo replied calmly. That sounds just like her. He paused, stubbing out his cigarette. We can save the money for promoting the song. Someone else will do it for us. Everything was falling into place. With Starfall's investment, the perfect shell of Star Dream Studio was secured. The flames of public opinion were lit, and prestige points would soon start pouring in. The first solid paving stone on his path to revenge had been laid. Just then, the cold, mechanical voice echoed in his mind again. Ding. Random mission issued. Host is to apply for a producer position at Star Dream Studio. Success will reward one popular anime screenplay. Accept mission? Leo raised an eyebrow slightly, and, without hesitation, thought to himself. Accept. At the hot pot restaurant in Schwanqing, what was meant to be a celebratory dinner felt more like a funeral. The bubbling red broth went untouched. A heartbroken Hannah sobbed. Claire, I'm sorry, I let you down. Claire shook her head, her voice weary. It's not your fault. It was a fixed competition. Nobody could have won. She raised her glass to her small, loyal team. Chloe, you're young, don't waste your time here. Hannah, the performance rights to the original Dream are my gift to you. Go to a big company. Sean, with your talent, you'll shine anywhere. This drink is to all of you, to your bright futures. The strong liquor burned, extinguishing the last of their hope. But none of them knew that as they said their goodbyes in despair, a storm of public outrage and online traffic was already forging a new path for them. On the social media trending charts, squeezed between headlines about Suahi and Iris Lee's new song and the usual celebrity gossip, an unlikely topic was climbing at an astonishing speed. #rigged. Our music scene is dying because of trash judges like these. #. The person who started the topic was the senior producer Dexter Sia, under his online alias, Melon. Writing as an industry insider, he detailed how a high-quality work like The Original Dream had been blatantly suppressed by biased judges at a local TV competition. He posted the live performance video alongside a clip of the judge's absurd commentary, creating a powerfully ironic contrast. His post ignited a firestorm of anger across the internet. Are you kidding me? A song this good got last place. I was there. That girl, Hannah Zhang, she made half the audience cry. And then when the scores came out, the look in her eyes. I'll never forget it. Are those 4 judges deaf? They couldn't find any fault with her singing, so they trashed the song? The quality of this song crushes the winners. A sense of justice is the cheapest and most powerful fuel in the online world. And this time, the victim was a sweet-looking girl with a heartbreaking voice and sorrowful eyes. Overnight, Hannah Zhang's follower count exploded from 100,000 to 500,000. The Original Dream shot up the new music charts like a rocket, breaking into the top 10. At Seastone Entertainment, Evan Yang sat in his brand-new office, smugly admiring the crystal trophy he had won. The general manager had just met with him personally, promising to invest heavily in his career. He could already see himself as an A-list star in 2 years, living a life of fame and luxury. Just then, his manager, Zhang, burst in, his face grim. We have a problem. Evan took the tablet from him, and his smile froze as he saw the trending topic. His finger trembled as he scrolled down, seeing an endless stream of curses and calls to boycott him. Manager Zhang. He looked up, his voice pleading. Zhang's eyes were as cold as steel. The CEO has given his orders. The company is cutting all ties with you, effective immediately. You are forbidden from identifying yourself as a Seastone Entertainment artist. Why? You're the ones who rigged the competition. Evan roared, his eyes red. Do you have any proof? Zhang sneered, delivering the final blow. Also, due to the damage to your personal reputation, you are in breach of contract. The company has the right to unilaterally terminate your agreement and demand $2 million in compensation. $2 million. The words exploded in Evan's mind like a thunderclap, plunging him into an icy abyss. He stared blankly as Zhang turned and walked away. He stumbled, and in his panic, his hands swept across his desk. The crystal trophy, a symbol of his tainted victory, shattered on the floor with a piercing shriek. He frantically knelt, ignoring the sharp fragments that cut his fingers, and clutched the cold, broken pieces in his hands. His warm blood mixed with the cold indifference of capital in his palms. In that moment, he remembered the simple smiles and unconditional support back at Star Dream Studio. But it was too late to go back. The next day, when Chloe and Hannah returned to the studio to pack, they were stunned. Chloe, Sean, I'm a hit. Hannah pointed at the computer screen, her voice trembling. The skyrocketing follower count and the top 10 chart position felt like an impossible dream. Claire was also dizzied by the sudden reversal of fortune. One day they were having a farewell dinner. The next they were bathed in the dawn of a new hope. She took a deep breath and immediately snapped back into boss mode. Hannah, seize this opportunity. Post more on social media. I'll go find you some business deals and turn this heat into a real fan base. More good news followed. Hungover from the night before, Claire was only just moving into her new, cheaper apartment. She dragged her suitcase out of the elevator, panting, and noticed that the door to the apartment across the hall was open. A man carrying a large bag of snacks and drinks walked out, the same rude guy from the elevator yesterday. She ignored him and unlocked her own door. Just as she let out her fat cat, hee, her assistant Jia called, her voice nearly breaking with excitement. Claire, a film crew contacted us. They want Hannah to sing their theme song. Claire was thrilled, but the details presented a new problem. It was a $50,000 contract, but they would be competing against Ryan Zhao, a B-list singer from Luminous Entertainment. If the song they commissioned wasn't chosen, the production fees would be a complete loss. Claire sat on her dusty sofa, her cat purring on her lap. She stroked its soft fur, her mind at war. The $10 million in investment capital had just arrived. It was money given to them for their dream, and she couldn't be reckless with it. But this was a crucial opportunity for Hannah to maintain her momentum. We'll take it, she said, making her decision. Even if we fail, we'll just consider it Hannah's next single. So, are we going to commission a song from Toon Trade again? Jia asked. Claire pouted, a certain figure popping into her mind. No need, she huffed, a hint of playful resentment in her voice. I'll contact Stardust directly. He still owes me a $10,000 refund. Leo Su's apartment was filled with the unique and overpowering aroma of pungent snail noodle soup. He had just finished a satisfying dinner when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He ignored it, assuming it was another telemarketer with a can't-miss opportunity. But the number immediately called back, persistent. Leo answered with a frown. A voice he knew down to his bones, a voice he was trying his hardest to forget, came through the speaker. Leo, it was Iris Lee. Why are you calling me? Leo's voice instantly turned to ice. He had blocked all her known numbers, but he hadn't expected her to use a new one. Why did you block me? Iris's voice was slurred with alcohol and laced with accusation. Her entitled tone made Leo laugh. We broke up. Should I have kept your number as a souvenir? Can't we be friends after breaking up? You used to care whenever I was drinking. I went to an event today and begged Mr. Zhang from Jingyang Entertainment to give you a job. Why aren't you grateful? Why are you treating me like this? Every word from Iris was a needle pricking at Leo's frayed nerves. He finally snapped. Before, you were my girlfriend. Who the hell are you now? Take your unsolicited charity and shove it. I don't need it. The moment you chose Warner, we were done. He slammed the phone down, throwing it onto the sofa, his chest heaving. He lit a cigarette, trying to calm his churning emotions with nicotine. Just then, the phone rang again. Are you out of your mind? He yelled, grabbing the phone without checking the caller ID. A dead silence met him from the other end. After a few seconds, a small, timid female voice squeaked. Mr. Stardust? I'm not your ex-girlfriend. Leo froze. He pulled the phone away from his ear and saw the contact name Big Spender. His eye twitched. It was Claire Lynn. He took a deep breath, forcing his anger down. What do you want? On the other end, Claire was struggling to suppress her burning curiosity about the gossip she'd just overheard, while cautiously explaining her reason for calling, an offer to produce a movie theme song. The unexpected job offer surprised Leo, but it also confirmed his suspicion that Hannah's newfound fame was already starting to pay off. Fine. Send me the details. You know the rules. Yes, of course. But this time, besides the performance rights, they'll also need the film synchronization rights. That's fine. Oh, good. Just as Claire was thinking he was actually quite reasonable, Leo coolly added, it'll just cost you more. After the call, Claire sent him the movie's plot summary, Fleeting Years. A melodramatic teen romance about first love, misunderstandings, and reunions. Leo rolled his eyes as he read it, mentally complaining that bad movies always produce great songs. But a perfect melody was already forming in his mind, a song called Years Gone By. Just then, the delivery service called. A box of his personal items from the Warner office had arrived. He went downstairs to get it. As the elevator doors opened, he saw that the apartment across from his, which had been empty for 2 years, was now open. A slender girl with her back to him was mopping the floor. He didn't think much of it, and carried his box upstairs. He got to his door and realized he'd forgotten to close it. Shaking his head at his own carelessness, he carried the box inside and kicked the door shut. The box was full of useless junk. None of his awards had been sent, but he did find a framed photo of himself and Iris. He stared at the smiling, happy couple in the picture, then expressionlessly tossed the frame back into a corner of the box and threw the whole thing into a storage closet. He had just settled onto the sofa, ready to use the system to create Years Gone By, when he felt a wet, tickling sensation on his calf. He shot up in alarm. A large, round cat was staring up at him with innocent eyes. It had clearly just been licking his leg. What the hell? Leo was allergic to saliva and immediately ran to the bathroom to wash it off. He guessed the cat must belong to his new neighbor. He had just stepped out of the bathroom when there was a knock at the door. A cigarette dangling from his lips, he opened it. The girl who had been mopping was standing there. Hearing her owner's voice, the fat cat immediately darted out of Leo's apartment and into her arms. The girl scolded the cat as she looked up, and when she saw Leo's face, she froze as if struck by lightning. It was him, the man who had taken her first time. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. Shock, confusion, shame, and pain flickered across her face. She mumbled a stiff, "Thank you," and then fled back into her apartment, slamming the door shut. Leo was completely baffled by her strange reaction. He scratched his head, thinking the well-endowed woman looked familiar, but he couldn't place her. Behind the door, Claire slid to the floor, her back against the wood. She wanted to run, to escape, but the rental contract, with its hefty deposit and 3 months' rent paid up front, held her prisoner. It's only for a month, she told herself. If I just avoid going out, I shouldn't run into him much. Early the next morning, Leo was woken up by the sound of what could only be described as caterwauling vocal exercises coming from next door. Furious and sleep-deprived, he stormed over and pounded on his neighbor's door, his hair a mess. Claire jumped at the sound of the knock. When she hesitantly opened the door and saw Leo's handsome, angry face, she was too guilty to even look him in the eye. Seeing her remorseful attitude, Leo's anger subsided. He just told her to keep it down. As they stood there awkwardly, the fat cat, hee-hee, once again shot past them and into Leo's apartment. Hee-hee, Claire cried out. Leo stepped aside, gesturing inside. You go get him. I'm allergic to saliva. I don't want him licking me. Claire looked at the open doorway, as if it were an entrance to hell. She hesitated, struggled, and finally, gritting her teeth, she stepped into the home of the one man she wanted to run from most in the world. Leo Sue's apartment was filled with the unique and overpowering aroma of pungent snail noodle soup. He had just finished a satisfying dinner when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He ignored it, assuming it was another telemarketer. But the number immediately called back. Leo answered with a frown. A voice he knew down to his bones, a voice he was trying his hardest to forget, came through the speaker. Leo. It was Iris Lee. Why are you calling me? Leo's voice instantly turned to ice. He had blocked all her known numbers, but he hadn't expected her to use a new one. Why did you block me? Iris's voice was slurred with alcohol and laced with accusation. Her entitled tone made Leo laugh. We broke up. Should I have kept your number as a souvenir? His voice was devoid of warmth, as if stating a law of physics. On the other end, Iris began to air her grievances, talking about how hard she had worked to pave the way for him at another top entertainment company. Leo listened quietly, his expression shifting from annoyance to a deep weariness. He finally couldn't take it anymore and cut her off. Take your unsolicited charity and shove it. I don't need it. His voice was calm but resolute. The moment you chose Warner, the moment you chose that so-called dream, we were done. He slammed the phone down, throwing it onto the sofa, his chest heaving. He lit a cigarette, trying to calm his churning emotions. Just then, the phone rang again. Are you out of your mind? He yelled, grabbing the phone without checking the caller ID. We broke up. Do you know what that means? Damn it. A dead silence met him from the other end. After a few seconds, a small, timid female voice squeaked. Mr. Stardust? I'm not your ex-girlfriend. Leo froze. He pulled the phone away from his ear and saw the contact name Big Spender. His eye twitched. It was Claire Lynn. He took a deep breath, forcing his anger down. What do you want? On the other end, Claire was struggling to suppress her burning curiosity about the gossip she'd just overheard, while cautiously explaining her reason for calling. A movie called Fleeting Years needed a theme song. As Leo listened, a perfect melody formed in his mind. He agreed, and when Claire brought up the need for film rights, he added coolly, it'll just cost you more. After the call, Leo's life seemed to return to normal, until the next morning, when he was woken by the sound of caterwauling vocal exercises coming from next door. Furious and sleep-deprived, he stormed over and pounded on his neighbor's door, his hair a mess, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The door opened, revealing a face that was all too familiar, and one he least wanted to see here. The woman who had taken his first time, and whose first time he had taken, Claire Lynn. To make matters worse, the moment Claire opened the door, her fat cat, hee-hee, shot into Leo's apartment like a white blur. Hee-hee, Claire cried out, looking at Leo's angry face, too guilty to even meet his eyes. Leo stepped aside, gesturing inside. You go get him. I'm allergic to saliva. Steeling herself, Claire stepped into the home of the one man she wanted to run from most. A chaotic chase ensued. The agile cat leaped around Leo's living room, knocking over an ashtray, kicking over the trash can, and sending a freshly made cup of instant noodles, Leo's breakfast, flying in a graceful arc onto the floor. When Claire finally caught the cat, panting, and tried to sneak away, the front door clicked shut. What are you doing? Claire turned pale, backing into a corner, eyes squeezed shut, holding the cat in front of her face like a shield. Her reaction made Leo laugh despite his anger. He pointed at the mess. You think you can just leave after this? Claire opened her eyes and saw the disaster she and her cat had caused. Her face turned beet red. Like a guilty schoolgirl, she silently picked up a broom and mop and began to clean. Leo leaned against the door, lit a cigarette, and watched her. She hated the smell of smoke and mumbled a protest, but he shut her down with, It's my house. I'll do what I want. The woman seemed a bit dim-witted, but she was surprisingly efficient at housework. Half an hour later, the room was spotless. Claire rubbed her sore back and asked timidly, Is this okay? Leo pointed at the noodle remains in the trash. That was my breakfast. I'll go buy you another one. I'm hungry now. Under Leo's playful gaze, Claire finally relented and went into his kitchen to cook him a bowl of noodles. Leo leaned against the doorway like a foreman, instructing her to add 2 eggs and extra noodles. The atmosphere in the small space became oddly charged. She efficiently fried the eggs, cooked the noodles, and even scrubbed the pot clean. There, can I go now? She asked, wiping her hands, desperate to escape. Let's eat together. Leo brought 2 steaming bowls of noodles to the table and winked at her. No, I have to get to work. Leo's gaze fell on the broken ashtray on the floor. He sighed, his voice tinged with a perfect note of melancholy. My ashtray is broken. I'll buy you a new one. That ashtray, Leo looked at her, his eyes deep, was a gift from my ex-girlfriend. I had it for 8 years. That one, possibly false, declaration of sentiment was the final blow. Claire, head bowed, ate the noodles with him, washed the dishes, and finally fled with her troublemaking cat. Back in her own apartment, Claire's heart was still pounding. She had no idea that the man she saw as a menace was now sitting at his computer, sending a song file named Years Gone By to her messaging app. And in her office, her employees were about to fall into another fit of rabid adoration for the mysterious producer Stardust, and begin plotting how to bring this genius into their fold. Leaving the spa, Leo was in a bit of a funk. His friend's younger sister, Kiralee, had him completely figured out. The thought of that mischievous girl wreaking havoc in his apartment gave him a headache. More importantly, if she blabbed about his unceremonious firing from Warner to his stubborn father, it would be a social death of epic proportions. Lost in thought, he arrived at his apartment and noticed a new ashtray sitting quietly by his door, with a note tucked underneath. I know your ashtray had special meaning, but this was the closest match I could find after looking for a long time. I'm sorry. The handwriting was elegant, the tone sincere and cautious. Leo looked at the words, picturing Claire Lynn's flustered yet stubborn face, and couldn't help but laugh. An 8-year-old ashtray from an ex? 8 years ago, he was 15. This woman actually believed him. Seriously, is she always this naive? I'm starting to feel a little guilty, he murmured, picking up the ashtray. He glanced at the closed door across the hall, a smile touching his lips that he himself didn't notice. The next day, in the conference room for the film Fleeting Years, the atmosphere was tense. The investor's representative, Ivan Zhang, was in a standoff with the director, Liu. Director Liu was a purist. He saw his film as his child and refused to let some internet celebrity, who shot to fame through manufactured drama, taint his masterpiece with a garbage song whipped up in a single day. Mr. Zhang, I'll say it one more time. Director Liu leaned back, arms crossed, his tone unyielding. My film will go without a theme song before I use that track from Star Dream Studio. Ivan Zhang, however, wore a strange smile. He wasn't angry. He simply signaled his assistant to play the song submitted by Luminous Entertainment, the one director Liu had hailed as a work of genius. Music filled the room, a well-produced, emotional ballad. Director Liu closed his eyes, swaying to the rhythm, his face a mask of smug satisfaction. You hear that? This is a song that fits our film. This is professional. When the song ended, he looked at Ivan, his gaze firm. I want this song. That's final. Don't be so hasty, director. Ivan was still smiling. Let's at least listen to Star Dream's Years Gone By before we decide. Director Liu snorted and leaned back, adopting a show-me-what-you've-got posture. The assistant hit play. The intro began with just a few simple piano chords, but an indescribable atmosphere of melancholy instantly enveloped the room like liquid silver. The look of disdain on Director Liu's face froze. He instinctively sat up straight. Those years gone by, how many times did we say, we'd delay our goodbyes after we said goodbye? Hannah Zhang's clear, ethereal voice was like a gentle key, effortlessly unlocking a long-sealed door in everyone's memory. Director Liu's expression shifted through a complex series of emotions: shock, disbelief, reminiscence. The most heart-wrenching scenes from his film began to overlap perfectly with the lyrics in his mind. When the chorus hit, the line, "If seeing you again doesn't bring tears to my eyes, can it still bring a blush to my cheeks?" struck everyone like a bolt of lightning. There were no soaring, dramatic high notes. Instead, the emotion was a masterful push and pull, exquisitely capturing the regret, guilt, and nostalgia of a love that was lost. The conference room was silent, save for the flowing melody. Ivan Zhang leaned back, enjoying the sight of Director Liu's face transforming from stunned, to embarrassed, to utterly conquered. He knew his gamble had paid off. By the time the song ended, Director Liu's eyes were red. He looked at Ivan, his lips trembling, unable to speak. The awkward silence stretched on, until he finally broke it himself. Ahem. Actually, I think Mr. Zhang's proposal has some merit, he said, his face flushing, forcing the words out. Oh, but I seem to recall you saying a song by some internet celebrity wasn't worthy of your child. Ivan wasn't about to let him off the hook. It's worthy. Hannah Zhang's vocal skill is on par with any professional singer. So, which song are we using? Ivan pressed, leaning forward. Director Liu felt his face burning. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and practically shouted. Years gone by. Back at Star Dream Studio, when Claire Lynn heard the news over the phone, a joyful shriek echoed through the office. She ran out and hugged Hannah, and the two girls jumped up and down like children, crying tears of joy. Sean and Chloe were also ecstatic. They had just snatched a major project from the biggest entertainment company in the city. This was something they couldn't have even dreamed of before. Claire. Sean's eyes shone with a newfound brilliance. This producer, Stardust. We have to sign him, no matter what it takes. The suggestion met with unanimous agreement. Hannah blushed, clenching her small fists. Whatever it takes. If it's for Mr. Stardust, Hannah would be willing. You little flirt, Claire laughed, tapping her playfully. But in her mind, signing Stardust had just become the company's #1 priority. As she gossiped with the girls about her idol Suah He's upcoming new song, she was already plotting how to recruit this mysterious genius. As dusk settled, Claire Lynn sat on the light rail heading home, masked, with headphones on. Suah He's songs played on a loop, the familiar melodies a rare comfort in her exhausting life. On the carriage TV, a promotional video for a streaming service's music gala played repeatedly, its main selling point being the first ever public appearance of genius producer Suah. She watched the screen, her heart filled with a fan's adoration for her idol. This adoration made her think of another producer who also released music for free, Stardust. She took out her phone, opened the terse chat history, took a deep breath, and sent a tentative invitation. Mr. Stardust, are you there? What is it? I was wondering if you're signed with a company? No. In that case, would you be interested in visiting us at Star Dream Studio? Each message sent was an agony. Each wait for a reply felt like an eternity. When she finally received the response, send me your company address. I'll stop by when I have time. She almost jumped up in the middle of the carriage. She frantically sent the location, added a cute emoji, and then drifted into a daze. It wasn't until the train's automated announcement that she realized she had been so absorbed in the chat that she had missed her stop. After much trouble, Claire finally arrived at her apartment building with a bag of groceries. She looked around furtively, making sure the elevator was empty before quickly swiping her keycard. She just wanted to get back to her safe space, away from the neighbor who made her so flustered. But as she stood at her door, fumbling in her purse for her keys, a dreadful realization struck her. They were gone. She dumped the contents of her purse onto the floor. Lipstick, perfume, bank cards. Everything but the small metal objects that would let her in. She thought about calling a locksmith, but the hallways of this high-end complex were so clean there wasn't a single business card or flyer to be found. She was done for. The thought was a pinprick that burst the balloon of her pent-up emotions. The stress, the injustice, the failures of the past few days came flooding out. She hated capital, yet she had to rely on it to survive. She was full of ambition, but reality had slapped her down. An adult's breakdown often happens in an instant. She sank to the floor, buried her head in her arms, and her shoulders began to shake violently as muffled sobs echoed in the empty hallway. Click. The door across the hall opened. Leo Su, a cigarette between his lips, was about to complain about whatever drunk was making a scene when he saw Claire, crumpled on the floor, crying her heart out. He froze, the complaint dying in his throat. He didn't approach her, nor did he turn away. Instead, he chose the most textbook guy way possible. He leaned against the doorframe, lit his cigarette, and just watched her, as if observing a piece of performance art titled Breakdown. After what felt like a long time, her crying subsided. Claire looked up, glaring at this man who had remained completely unmoved, her eyes swollen and red. She couldn't understand why he hadn't offered a single word of comfort. What's wrong crying like that? Leo finally spoke, a hint of amusement in his voice. I can't find my keys, she mumbled, her voice still thick with tears. That's it. The genuine surprise on his face made her feel even more foolish for her outburst. In the end, with Leo's invitation of, I haven't had dinner either, the homeless Claire Lynn, carrying the groceries that were meant for her own dinner, reluctantly entered his apartment. However, the comforting she had imagined never came. The moment she was inside, Leo pointed her towards the kitchen and told her to cook. His reason? I don't know how to. Claire was so angry she could barely breathe. This man invited a woman who had just been crying her eyes out into his home, just to make her his personal chef? He hadn't even really looked at her. The meal proceeded in a strange silence. Leo ate ravenously, praising her cooking, while she took small, nervous bites, her mind a tangled mess. The smell of smoke from the living room made her frown, but when she saw the brand new ashtray on the coffee table, she remembered the one she had broken and apologized softly. It's fine, it was just an ashtray, Leo said casually, having completely forgotten the story he'd invented about his ex-girlfriend. But to Claire, his words sounded like he was being gracious to make her feel better. She looked at the man lounging on the sofa, enveloped in smoke, and suddenly thought that maybe her neighbor wasn't so bad after all. After dinner, Leo took on the task of washing the dishes. Claire sat on the sofa, watching a commercial for Blue River TV's singing competition, Supreme Diva, and began to scheme for the studio's future. The show seemed perfect for Chloe, and the idea of getting her an audition spot took root in her mind. As she was thinking, a figure silently sat down beside her. She turned and found Leo's face just inches from hers, so close she could smell the faint scent of tobacco on him. Her heart skipped a beat. "What are you doing?" she yelped, leaning back in alarm. "I want to make a deal with you," Leo said, rubbing his hands together with a slightly embarrassed smile. "Look, your cooking is amazing. How about I buy the groceries, you do the cooking, and we eat together?" "No." The word flew out of her mouth before she could think. "I'll wash the vegetables, cook the rice, and do the dishes. All you have to do is the main course," he persisted. "No, no, get away from me." Claire, like a frightened rabbit, grabbed a throw pillow and hurled it at him. In the midst of the chaos, Leo's phone rang. He answered, said, "Okay, I'm coming out," and stood up to leave. "Where are you going?" "The locksmith is here." Leo looked back at her stunned face, a barely perceptible smile on his lips. "Lady, there's this thing called the internet. It's pretty useful." Chapter 14. In the offices of Luminous Entertainment, Ryan Zhao stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The email from the Fleeting Years film crew was a cold, final verdict, each word burning his eyes. "Thank you for your submission. We regret to inform you. We look forward to future collaborations." "How is this possible?" he muttered, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. He quickly opened his social media feed. The film's official account had just confirmed his nightmare. The trailer would be released tomorrow night, and the theme song, Years Gone By, would be performed by that online personality he had never given a second thought to, Hannah Zhang. His confidence and pride shattered into dust. He, a B-list singer with millions of followers, had lost to a nobody who had only gotten famous through a rigged competition? "We have a problem." His manager, Lee, rushed in. Seeing the email on the screen, his panicked expression turned into a weary smile. "Looks like you already know." "Why?" Ryan's voice was hoarse. "My vocals, my status. I'm better than her in every way. Is the film crew blind?" "The problem might be the song," his manager suggested cautiously. "Impossible." Ryan shot to his feet. "My song was written by Henry Liu, a mid-tier producer. You're telling me his song lost to some unknown named Stardust?" Just then, the office door flew open and producer Henry Liu stormed in, his face dark. "Ryan, what's going on?" "My song was rejected." The air in the room froze. Facing the furious producer, Ryan poured out all his theories and frustrations. After a frantic brainstorming session, they arrived at a truth that satisfied everyone. It wasn't the singer, and it wasn't the song. It was the film crew. They were clueless. Their taste was simply too poor to appreciate true art. This perfect excuse soothed Henry Liu's wounded pride. "Oomph, a small-time production like this dares to reject my work." His expression softened slightly, but a vicious glint appeared in his eyes. "If they don't have good taste, then we'll let the charts decide who's better." A textbook, poison-laced plan to piggyback on their hype was born. "Get your fan club leaders to control the narrative," Henry Liu sneered. "Say the film crew rejected our superior song just to leech off Hannah Zhang's viral fame. Muddy the waters, make it a huge controversy. We'll release our song a day early, ride their hype train, and shoot to the top of the charts." Ryan's eyes lit up with excitement. It was brilliant. Not only could he get his revenge, but he could use this massive controversy to promote his own new song and stage a stunning comeback in the court of public opinion. Soon, a carefully orchestrated online storm erupted. The hashtag Fleeting Years theme song controversy shot up the trending list, fueled by bots and enraged fans. "OMG, my heart breaks for my baby. He's being bullied by a shameless film crew and a conniving wannabe. Who does Hannah Zhang think she is, trying to steal a project from my Ryan? First she plays the victim after a rigged show, now she's rigging things herself. What a snake." A tide of vicious comments flooded Hannah Zhang's social media page. Her direct messages were filled with vile insults and curses. She stared at the twisted words, completely stunned. The confidence and goodwill she had built up from the original dream were washed away in an instant. Her eyes grew red as she stood there, helpless, like a baby bird caught in a downpour. Just then, a warm hand gently patted her shoulder. Claire Lynn was standing behind her, her eyes sharp and cold. "Hannah, get up." She sat down in Hannah's chair and looked at the torrent of hate on the screen, a smirk playing on her lips. Trying to play the fan manipulation game with me?" As a former A-lister who had weathered countless PR battles, Ryan Zhao's petty tricks were laughably amateur to her. Her fingers flew across the keyboard like a general about to launch a counterattack. A moment later, a new post appeared on Hannah Zhang's account, with a completely different tone. "Why is everyone so mean to me? I had no idea this was happening. As a newcomer, I've always looked up to Ryan as a role model. The theme song was the film crew's decision. I'm just a rookie. I don't have the power to take jobs away from a senior artist." Crying emojis. The post was filled with a sense of injustice, helplessness, and humility. It perfectly painted the picture of a simple, innocent newcomer terrified by online bullying. Claire, won't this make us look too weak? Chloe asked, confused. Online, the weaker party is the stronger party. Claire winked at them, explaining patiently. Right now, the more they attack, the higher they place themselves on a moral high ground. But tomorrow, when our song is released, and every neutral listener realizes that you crushed Ryan with sheer talent, every insult they threw at you today will become a slap in their own faces. Their guilt will make them want to compensate you doubly. And Ryan, who looks so superior right now, will be exposed as a sore loser who bullies newcomers. Her words were a revelation to Hannah and Chloe. They looked at Claire with newfound awe. Meanwhile, in the Fleeting Years conference room, Director Liu and the investor Ivan Zhang were also watching the drama unfold. Instead of getting angry at the smear campaign, they both wore sly, fox-like smiles. Mr. Zhang, are you suggesting we not only ignore the rumors, but add fuel to the fire? Exactly. Ivan's eyes glinted shrewdly. He wants hype, so let's give him all the hype he can handle. Let everyone pay attention to this showdown. Tomorrow, after Years Gone By is released, we'll guide the public opinion. By then, it won't just be Hannah Zhang and that genius producer Stardust who become famous. It'll be our movie too. At 10 o'clock that night, amid the eager anticipation of thousands of fans, Ryan Zhao's I Used to Love You was released on all platforms. Fueled by the massive online controversy, the song's metrics skyrocketed. Streams, downloads, and comments shot through the roof. Henry Liu and Ryan Zhao sat in front of their computers, their faces flushed with excitement as they watched the numbers climb. They looked at each other, their eyes shining with the thrill of victory. Haha, it's a sure thing. This time, it's really in the bag. They raised their glasses to toast their impending, crushing victory, celebrating the #1 spot on the charts that was surely theirs. Lost in their triumphant celebration, they had no idea they had fallen into a much larger, deeper trap set by their opponents. The real ace was still waiting quietly on a computer at Stardream Studio, ready to deliver the fatal blow tomorrow. The morning sun cast dappled shadows on the apartment floor. Leo Su stood in front of the mirror, looking at a version of himself that was both familiar and strange. Dressed in a casual t-shirt and sweatpants, a freshly lit cigarette between his lips, he had a weariness in his eyes that didn't match his age. It had been a long time since he'd had to go to work. Ever since being kicked out of Warner, he had become a typical shut-in. Today he was going to inspect his new property, Stardream Studio. He left his apartment. The door across the hall remained closed. His clumsy, yet surprisingly skilled, neighbor must have left for the day already. He found himself missing last night's home-cooked meal and made a mental note to finalize their joint meal plan soon. Arriving at the studio on the 8th floor of the office building, he found the reception desk empty. The large office space was mostly vacant, looking as desolate as a crime scene. Truly impressive, to nearly bankrupt the studio all by herself, Leo thought, offering a moment of silent, sarcastic respect to the big spender boss he had yet to meet. He followed the sound of voices and found the studio's 3 remaining employees huddled around a computer, their expressions grim. Ryan Zhao's song is already at number 8 on the charts. It'll definitely hit number 1 today, Hannah said, her voice laced with anxiety. Public opinion is a double-edged sword, Sean reassured her. The more popular he is now, the harder he'll fall when our song comes out. I can't wait for tonight. Chloe waved a small fist. In the face of absolute talent, all schemes are useless. By the way, Claire said, Mr. Stardust is coming to the office today, right? Chloe's tone shifted, her gossip-loving side taking over. I hope we can convince him to stay, Sean said, his face full of hope. With a master like him here, we're bound to succeed. Getting him to stay will be easy, Chloe said with a sly grin, looking at Hannah. Didn't our Hannah say she'd be willing to offer herself up if Mr. Stardust wanted? Stop it. Hannah blushed, playfully swatting at Chloe. What if Stardust is also ridiculously handsome? A magnetic, somewhat lazy male voice spoke up from behind them, completely unannounced. Then I, Chloe Chun, will definitely conquer him and add him to my harem. Chloe blurted out without a second thought. A moment later, she realized something was off and whipped her head around. And then, she froze. A man was leaning against a nearby desk, a cigarette held between his lips, watching them with an amused smile. He was breathtakingly handsome, with sharp features, deep, Yonglin eyes, and an aura that was a captivating mix of youthful charm and mature world weariness. A true heartbreaker. Are you Mr. Stardust? Hannah asked, her voice trembling with excitement, her hands clasped in front of her chest like a starstruck fan. Leo stubbed out his cigarette and nodded, a perfectly calibrated smile on his lips. That's right, I'm Stardust. Meanwhile, in a coffee shop downstairs, Claire Lynn was in the middle of a difficult negotiation. Across from her sat her old university classmate, Victor Zhao, now a program planner at Blue River TV. Victor, for old time's sake, can you help me get an audition slot for Supreme Diva? Claire had shed the pride of a former A-list artist, her voice holding a note of pleading. She had to swallow her pride to give Chloe a chance. Victor wore a gentle smile, but a calculating glint shone in his eyes. He talked in circles, emphasizing how high the show's standards were and how fierce the competition was, subtly inflating the value of his favor. "I remember you were the campus beauty back in the day," he said, changing the subject. "I was one of your admirers, you know." Warning bells went off in Claire's head. She had been in the entertainment industry long enough to understand the implication behind his words. Sure enough, a moment later, his hand, which was resting on the table, began to creep towards hers. Just as she was about to snatch her hand away and leave, her phone rang like a lifeline. It was Sean. "Claire, Mr. Stardust is here. When are you coming back?" "What? He's there." Claire's voice shot up an octave, her face alight with pure joy. She immediately stood up and gave Victor an apologetic smile. "Victor, I'm so sorry. Something urgent came up at the office. I have to go right now. About the audition slot, thank you so much for your help. Just name your price, and I'll wire it to you." Without waiting for a reply, she rushed out of the coffee shop, leaving a stunned and resentful Victor in her wake. Right now, nothing was more important to her than securing the mysterious genius producer. She ran to the elevator, her heart pounding with excitement for her first official meeting with Stardust. She mentally rehearsed the generous offer she would make, even wondering if she might have to use a little of her feminine charm. She was completely oblivious to the fact that she was about to meet not only her infuriating next-door neighbor, but also the secret, silent owner of her entire studio.